a good little lockdown boy, and I haven't seen anyone in 6 weeks. So on Friday night, 3 of the lads called round for a bunch of cans and some pizza. And it was on Friday I was sitting looking at my team. And I was like, oh yeah, geez, I need to make this. But I was like, what about press conferences? What about COVID? What about this? What about that? I was like, ugh. And then I seen the deadline wasn't until Saturday morning. I said, you know what? I'll just wait till tomorrow morning. I was up to 5:30 drinking cans. And I didn't wake up until like 12:30. And I'd missed the deadline. And I had 2 transfers in the bank. And 1.8 mil in the bank.
So what was your planned transfers?
So I was going to go Son and Kane to KDB and Vardy. So it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But
points-wise, it probably worked out. But would you have captained De Bruyne over Werner?
100%.
So yeah, didn't work out then.
I probably would have got a similar points total to you. But the real heartbreaker is the burning of a transfer. I just burnt 4 points, you could say. But anyway, here we are. Now with Son and Kane on the team. But we'll get into that later in the show, Wes. Welcome to everyone listening. This is episode 4, I think, of the FPL Double Up podcast. And yeah, today we're going to talk about a lot of things. There's a lot of big talking points, particularly in the sort of premium midfielders, premium forwards, and kind of mid-priced ones as well, and juggling teams about. There's a lot to discuss. Captaincy choices, fixtures, me and your team's ways. We've actually come up with a forfeit for whichever one of us comes second.
Yeah.
Just in our own little private league, you could say, which is quite funny. We'll reveal all later in the show. And then we've got some great questions. So it should be a great episode. How's your week been, Wes?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Like you said, we'll get into our teams a bit later on. But yeah, it's been a really interesting week. A lot of the heavy hitters performing, and a lot of their sort of, the covering players theories gone out the window a bit this week in terms of Mahrez covering KDB didn't work, Jota covering Salah didn't work. So yeah, there's lots to talk about here, and I'm looking forward to going into our teams in a bit more depth because we've not really done that. So it'd be good to discuss our ranks, discuss our strategies, discuss our future plans and how we've done, and because our teams are very different in the minute as well. We've both gone a different way, so it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, neither of us are a template, I suppose you could say. But the big thing is that from those conversations, we're not just going to bore your tits off with talking about ourselves and being self-indulgent. A lot of both our teams are so different, and we have all the big talking points in our teams that we can go off on tangent after tangent, I think, which will be great. But before we get into the show, Wes, just need to give a shout out to the partners of the show, Fanslide. So basically what Fanslide is, it's the world's first in-play fantasy football game. Completely complimentary to FPL. You can play both. It's not like basically use all your FPL knowledge and you play in-play FPL. So yeah, they've got 6 games on this weekend. So download the app and go and give it a go on any one of those 6 games over the weekend, is what I'd say. Wes, did you play it recently or any little stories?
Yeah, I've been playing it a little bit, and the thing I like about Fanslide is when you're watching a game, you can actually impact it. So say this weekend, if I know a lot of people captain Bruno Fernandes, but obviously he's on the bench, so he's not an ideal captain this week with the likes of, in FPL, with the likes of De Bruyne and Salah and Kane and Son all smashing it. But if you're playing Fanslide, obviously you can wait till the second half, bring him on to your team, and you could have backed West Ham to have a good first half without Bruno and brought in some of those players. So you can kind of control things a bit more. You're the master of your own destiny, and it's free to play, and you can win some cash. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think particularly in that West Ham United fixture, it's almost the perfect Fanslide fixture where you could, first half, you see that Bruno isn't playing, you see that Rashford isn't playing.
Yeah.
You go heavy West Ham, you bring in your boy Souček, and then half time you see the big boys coming on and you say, nah, that this game's going to turn. And you bring in the United boys, and that's how you win. So
exactly.
Yeah, go and download Fanslide, let us know what you think. Right, Wes, let's get right into it. This is episode 4. We're preparing for game week 12, and we're going to have a look at your team, then we're going to have a look at my team. We're going to go off on lots of digressions and side topics for everyone else's teams, and we're going to hopefully come up with the perfect team or something. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
So tell us about your team. It's very contrasting to mine. You've obviously made a couple of the big moves that I haven't had the stones to do yet.
Yes, so with my team, at the minute I'm ranked 415k in the world, so not great, but equally I started the season so poorly that I've had about maybe 4 or 5 green arrows in a row. So I'm happy compared to where I was, just a few weeks ago. So it's definitely improving. Just a bad start that's cost me really. But now, my team, just to run through it quickly for the listeners. So I've got McCarthy in goal, Chilwell, Justin and Lamptey in defence. I've also got Dallas and Mitchell who were on the bench this week. In midfield, I've got Lookman and Soychek as my cheap midfielders that I plan to rotate. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as well. And I've got Salah, Fernandes, De Bruyne. And then at front, I've got Vardy, Bamford and Calvert-Lewin. So, this week I did a -8 as well, 4 transfers because I saved a transfer. So I got in the likes of Salah, who smashed it, De Bruyne, who smashed it, Bamford, who did well. I brought in Dallas and benched him, so it's hard to compare like for like. But I also removed some players who did really well. Robertson got a clean sheet. I removed Kane and Son, so I was really hoping that, I was kind of expecting a goal from Kane and maybe an assist for Son, but I was just hoping they wouldn't, get two goals there. And who else I removed? Grealish, who obviously this week did got 0. So it was kind of an aggressive move because Grealish wasn't playing. I possibly wouldn't have played it like this if he was actually playing. So it kind of worked out because of the captaincy factor. But overall kind of a break even, but with a -8 and big transfers for the future, I'm happy with that. Like Bamford's goal away at Chelsea, I was getting Bamford in for the longer term because 4 of his next 5 fixtures are pretty good games. Whereas, at the time of bringing him in, Chelsea was kind of his toughest fixture. Now he's got a decent run. He's got, let me just pull up his fixtures.
Let me see, I might have him here. Bamford, he's one of the top performing forwards. So his next fixtures are West Ham, Newcastle, United, which would be tough, you'd imagine, Burnley and West Brom.
Yeah, so exactly, yeah. Out of those next 5, you'd say 4 are very good. And even United, I wouldn't put it past Leeds to get a goal there. Like if they can score versus Chelsea, United can be very hit and miss, and I think United aren't even performing better away from home, and they're definitely letting in goals. So I'm not too worried about any of those next 5 fixtures. And like you say, definitely Newcastle home, Burnley home, West Brom away. They're really good ones. So happy with that. And likewise, that's the reason I got Dallas in and benched him this week. Because he's got those good fixtures coming up. But it's a really difficult one because all of my players I took out this week, I didn't actually want to lose them. Like I hadn't lost faith in Son and Kane and Robertson. It was just, or Grealish for that matter, long term. It was more about I had to make a decision with whether I wanted to free up the cash to bring in the likes of Salah and De Bruyne, and if it was worth losing those guys. And I made the kind of calculated decision that it was. And like I said, I just kind of needed to hope my players did the business, which they did. And then to make it extra sweet, I wanted Kane and Son to stay quiet. Didn't quite work out on that front, but I can't really grumble. You remove Kane and Son at home to a poor Arsenal side. You can't really bemoan luck, or it's not bad luck, is it, that they score goals? So
you see, you've got the holy trinity there. You have Salah, Fernandes and De Bruyne, and I think that's what a lot of FPL managers would kill for. But I think the bigger question is a lot of us are finding it hard to fit them in. You obviously had to take a -8 to make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm in a position where to make it happen, I have to get rid of Son and Kane, which I just don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just such
so
a hard
tough.
one. And I think it's a beautiful dilemma for the season of FPL. I think it's going to make or break some managers, and it's really, I know Wes, and I say it quite often, but a lot of people hate that idea of the template team. But it's a thing. A lot of teams are very, very similar, particularly in the mini leagues and stuff I've been involved in over the years. It depends on the season. Sometimes you can be barely Christmas time and the teams are all the same, bar maybe 2 players each. Whereas at the minute, I think a lot of the top 100k, a lot of the top 200k, a lot of the just FPL community in general have such contrasting teams. It makes it very exciting.
Yeah, there's so many viable, like in previous seasons, there's been almost no other viable options that you kind of couldn't be different. You had to be template, because if you wasn't template, then they were the players who were smashing it and doing well. Whereas this year, you've got the likes of loads of cheap strikers, like in that sort of 6 million bracket, doing well. Bamford, Wilson, Calvert-Lewin's obviously a little bit more expensive, but and then you've also got expensive strikers doing it, Vardy and Kane. In midfield, you've got Grealish and Zaha in your kind of and Diego Jota to an extent in the sort of mid-range doing it. So there's an argument that you don't need this holy trinity. If you have the likes of Grealish going forward, Zaha, Son, and a couple of other midfielders, you could essentially have. You don't even need Salah, Fernandes, and De Bruyne, and you could still be doing well. Obviously, I rate those players because they're in my team. And likewise with the strikers, like I minus 8. I took out Kane and Son, the top 2 performing players in the game, and I've still had a good game week, even though they smashed it. So it's just so many ways it can go, and there's lots of viable choices out there for teams now that we don't all have to be the same, which is nice. Likewise with defenders, there's lots of different ways you could go. You could have the likes of Robertson for his attack potential and his clean sheet potential, or you could go cheaper for the likes of Reece James at Chelsea. But yes, lots of different things there. I'm trying to think if there's any other talking points from my team I wanted to particularly cover.
Lookman is probably one of your more left field choices, but he's not particularly left field. You've been banging the Lookman drum for a while, so everyone's probably got him in. But
yeah, I've been banging.
And I look at your team, he's with one player that I haven't really considered.
Yeah, he's one of those that he's definitely not a must-have by any stretch of the imagination. He was more in there for a good value pick. If he'd have come in at price at sort of 5.5-6 million, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near him. It was just the fact that he was priced at 5 million, and I thought he'd chip in with some attacking returns. But it's interesting if you have. So what I'm going to do going forward, I've got Lookman and Souček, and I have been basically playing Lookman virtually every week. But if I'd have, so since Lookman first joined Fulham and he had his first 90 minutes in game week 5, if you'd have rotated him and Souček over that 7 game week period, you'd have got 6.43 FPL points per game. In game week 5, Lookman got 10 points. Game week 6 and 7, they both blanked with 2 points. But after that, game week 8, 9 points for Souček. Back to Lookman for an assist in game week 9, 5 points. Game week 10, a goal for Lookman. Game week 11, a goal for Souček. And if you do that, if you have those two, rather than, maybe a 6 million midfielder and a complete bench fodder player like Dale Stephens or something, when COVID strikes, if you are rotating Lookman and Souček, and say one of your other midfielders misses out, then at least you've got a decent option coming in, because Lookman and Souček are decent, like for their price, decent options to come into your team, rather than, like I said, a Dale Stephens. And you're still obviously not breaking the bank. You've got 2 midfielders there, combined price of 9.9 million. And like I said, you can kind of play them in any game or rotate them and get a decent return from them. So that's why I'm liking having those two in my team. It is annoying when I didn't pick the right one this week. I went for Lookman. He obviously had the harder fixture away to City. Souček had Man United at home. So just thinking back in hindsight, probably was a mistake, but I kind of went for the player on a bit better form at the time, because Lookman was off the back of a goal against Leicester, whereas Souček hadn't done much in a couple of games. But they can both pop up with a goal, so maybe it's just a case of picking the easiest fixture and playing that player. And like I said, if COVID strikes and the likes of Salah randomly miss out, then at least you've got the likes of Souček or Lookman coming off the bench, which is much more preferable to the likes of Dale Stephens.
Well, I have a similar kind of story with Souček this week, where I kept him on my bench and I was kind of hoping he'd come on, but I picked 4 defenders and they're all kind of shitty defenders, bar Chilwell, and I left Souček on the bench when really I probably should have played the midfielder. But I had James Justin, Lamptey and Walker-Peters on at defence alongside Chilwell. Justin and Lamptey, either of them could have been benched, but they both had okay fixtures. Yeah. And those 8 points in the bench are tough to take, and I'd say there's a lot of managers in the same position. Yeah,
but also, like I said, in terms of your defence, Chilwell, you're going to play him. You have to play 3 defenders anyway, so I guess it was that kind of last spot where it was maybe you could have benched Lamptey, but he had Southampton at home, decent fixture, and he's an attacking defender as well. And Souček, obviously, before this game, he's got Man United this game, and before this game, he hadn't done much in a couple of weeks, so it's definitely an understandable decision, and it's not necessarily, like you alluded to on last week's pod, a bad bet can win and a good bet can lose. Same with FPL. Yeah. A good pick, it's not necessarily a mistake for you, that one. It's more just the way the dice roll.
The cookie crumbles.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But if I was you, I wouldn't be too annoyed with that, because I'd be thinking, right, I've actually got a player now who's is in a bit of form. And with your setup, you're probably going to have to bench. You're probably likely to bench him again. But again, this is a season where COVID could strike with self-isolation. Big players have missed out in recent weeks. Salah's missed games. Zaha's just missed 2 games and then come back into the team. So if you did have that sort of Lookman or Souček type player to cover for Zaha when he did miss those 2 games, you could have potentially held on to him, and then all of a sudden you've got 18 points against West Brom. So it just helps. So yeah, you've got a good bench player in Souček there, so be happy with that, and be happy that, you know, it's going to save you having to do unnecessary transfers to players that you don't want, just to be able to like field 11, especially when you see teams who have a complete dud bench of players who don't even play. They're really risking it if COVID strikes, and they're really risking it in terms of then they're going to have to transfer out their good players that they don't necessarily want to for the long term.
Well, Wes, will I go through my team in a bit more depth? Is there anything you want to touch on in your team?
No, I've blabbed on about my team enough now, I think.
No. So this week, basically, I was a bit more patient with the Aston Villa guys because of the fixtures coming and because of the form a couple of them are in. Another factor for me, while I've been trying to ignore value as much as possible this season, I was going to lose something like 0.4 on Jack Grealish, and I know I want him back at that price, so I just said I'm not going to get rid of him. Now, as I told people at the start of the show, I didn't make any transfers anyway, so he wouldn't have been going anywhere anyway. But
you were really patient.
Yeah, too patient. The plan was to keep Martinez and just have a blank in goal because he's the keeper I want. I didn't want to take a -4 to get him out and be banking on anyone to keep a clean sheet. I just felt it was easier just to sacrifice the point or two that I was probably going to lose. Albeit if I had got the right player in, I could have made more points back. Like the kind of equity there. But anyway, Martinez in goal. Yeah, Chilwell explains himself.
Sorry, mate. I was just going to jump in terms of your Martinez decision. It was probably the right one because his sort of replacements would have been maybe Meslier for Leeds, but he didn't keep a clean sheet, and maybe McCarthy for Southampton. And again, he only got a 2-pointer. So if you were going to take a minus for a keeper in that situation, you actually lost. Let's just say you went McCarthy, you'd be 2 points worse off, and you'd have the keeper that you're not necessarily backing for the longer term. So back to just wanted to jump in there. So back to your defense, mate.
That's 100%. Martinez, Chilwell, it doesn't need explained. James Justin, Lamptey, and Walker Peters were played. And to be honest with you, they're 3 defenders that I will like to keep because of their prices. Walker Peters and Lamptey, particularly Lamptey, are both good for some attacking returns, outside chance of a clean sheet. And James Justin, while he hasn't done too much in the last 3 weeks, like in the last 3 weeks he's got 3 points. But when I've been watching Match of the Day and stuff, admittedly I haven't watched Leicester games in particular, but he seems to be getting up the pitch a bit, and I see he's putting in a lot of crosses, and I see him on the edge of the box, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's another wee goal to come from him in the next few weeks, a wee assist, or hopefully they can get some sort of clean sheet. So I probably won't be wasting transfers on my defence. The other defender's Mitchell, who's another story, but again, when you have 4 players like that, and I like to play a 3 at the back, Mitchell can sit there and rot. I don't really care until wildcard time.
Actually,
Midfield,
John, sorry, interrupting again, but I just can't help myself.
No, please keep interrupting if there's points, like.
In terms of your defence, it's actually the place where we're more similar in our teams, because I've got Chilwell, Justin, Lamptey, and Mitchell. We differ in Walker Peters to
Dallas, isn't it?
Dallas, yeah, but I'll be playing 3 at the back as well. So in terms of those players, like you said, Chilwell doesn't need explaining. He's really attacking and clean sheets there. Justin, like you say, he's been disappointing, but that isn't necessarily a reason to transfer him out just because he's had 3 or 4 bad game weeks, whatever it is. Because like you say, you've been watching Match Today and seen how attacking he is. I've been watching the full games, and he is getting forward, especially when he's in that wing-back role, which he has been recently. Sometimes he plays as part of a back 3 where attacking returns are less likely, but Justin's getting forward. And in the Europa League, I watched Justin again, and he was getting forward. I think he had a shot into the side net in. He should have had an assist, but he just messed up the pass. So I can definitely see. And if we think back to the start of the season, him and Castagna were both chipping in with the odd goal, the odd assist in the first few weeks. And likewise, Lamptey is one that, watching him yesterday, he was really frustrating me because he is all action and he can get forward, but there was a real lack of quality in terms of when he did get in the positions to put crosses in. But yeah, like you say, he's cheap. I'm not going to lose faith in him either. And Walker Peters, Justin, Lamptey and Walker Peters all start at 4.5 million. They all play none of them play centre back. They all play as attacking right backs essentially, or wing backs, and there's always chances of assists there. Like Walker Peters got fouled in the area, wins the penalty, gets you an assist. So there's definitely some points there, and there's a cut price. So then you can afford the likes of, in your team you've got Kane, Werner, Son, and Fernandes, all 4 pretty expensive players. So yeah, I just wanted to jump in and chat about your defence a little bit.
No, 100%. And I think the thing with James Justin that was worrying me, I kind of had it in my head that I was going to have to take him out over time whenever Ricardo Pereira was back. But it looks very much like Brendan Rodgers just wants to play Justin left back instead of having the young, inexperienced, while quite impressive, isn't Luke Thomas? I know his second name's Thomas. I'm pretty sure it's Luke Thomas. Yeah. I was kind of thinking, maybe James Justin will lose out a bit of game time with Fuchs and your man Thomas wanting a wee bit over there. Castagne's obviously sniffing around. Ricardo Pereira's in the mix. I was thinking, geez, they have a lot of wing backs that they need to kind of dish out minutes to. But I think the way it's going to look is, he's also been known to slot back into the back three at times, and I'm not really worried about his game time.
No.
So
I think with Justin, I'm just going to wait until literally the only way I see him losing his plays is when every Leicester defender's fit. So if they play a back three of Johnny Evans, Soyuncu, and Wesley Fofana, and then the wing backs of potentially Pereira and Castagne, then he'll miss out. But they've got injury issues at the back. Pereira's been out a long time. Castagne's still out, I think. Soyuncu came back in the Europa League and had to go off after 18 minutes. We all know Johnny Evans has got injury. Excuse me.
Wes just burped. And I have editing power, not him.
That's definitely staying in them. Soyuncu and I think Johnny Evans injury issues. So. And Justin seems very much, he's still young, but not an injury-prone player. So as long as there's sort of just one issue in the Leicester defence, I think he'll probably get in. So at his price, I think the way to play Justin is, wait, unless all those 5 players I mentioned are fully fit and firing and ready to start every single game, I think you can keep him. And we should all have strongish benches at the minute. So if he does lose his place, so for your team, John, and mine, I've got someone like Dallas to come in. You've got someone like Walker Peters or whatever. So I think we've got some time to wait until he's officially, 100% out of the team, if it ever happens. Like you say, he's actually a really good player, James Justin. So Brendan Rodgers might fancy him over the likes of Pereira or Castagne. We just don't know yet. So we shouldn't be taking him out, I don't think.
Well, do you know what's actually it was actually interesting to talk about defence, because I was thinking a lot of my discussion points would be up further up the pitch, but the defence is actually something that for me he's been on the back burner for so long, but realistically there's quite a lot of considerations there, particularly for other managers who maybe need to downgrade from the likes of Robertson from Trent, albeit Trent's probably long gone. But if people are looking to get rid of Robertson to get those premium midfielders, those are probably 3 of the top prospects in defence. So yeah, it was good to chat about them.
Yeah.
Moving further up the pitch, Diogo Jota came in at his nice price point. Didn't do much for me, but yeah, we've discussed him I think last week. Where it gets really interesting for me is kind of the last fight. Well, Bruno Fernandes, self-explanatory, played 45 minutes, cool 6 points. Calvert-Lewin, season keeper you could say, although no one's a season keeper, but if there is one it's probably him. And this is where it gets really interesting for me. The last 3 players who all banged. Well, no, they didn't all bang. 2 of them banged, 1 of them got an assist. I'll start with Spurs. I've still got Son and Kane. And we talked about this a week or 2 ago, Wes, where it's this, you want to try and get rid of players that aren't performing, not players that are performing. I think I read something the other day where Salah, at this point in the season, has more points than he did in his record-breaking season 3 years ago or whenever it was.
Yeah, I think I saw that sort of
something
tweet
like that.
Yeah.
Right? Son has 13 more points than him. Son is on for, I think we talked about it, a 300-point game week, or a 300-point season with 5 games to spare if he keeps this up, right?
Yeah, because he's on over 100 points, isn't he? He's
on 100, I think.
100 exactly, is it?
Pretty sure. Let me just check.
Yeah, so 100 exactly after 11 weeks. So yeah, if he does keep up this scoring rate, just for the sake of argument, so after 33 games he'd be on 300 points. So that gives him 5 games spare to get over and above that. And you're talking about Salah's record season. when he got 32 goals, 12 assists. He only got he got 303 points that season. So it's obviously a huge if, and Son is very likely to, obviously, he scored 10 goals in
for getting an injury or something. But
he's unlikely to be able to keep up. It's pretty much a goal a game, so it's going to be unlikely he's going to score 33, 34 goals. However, if he keeps something similar to that, he can expect to get close to that 300-point season.
The big point is that that's just like a little anecdote, right?
Yeah.
But he's 3 million cheaper, and that's where it gets interesting for me. If everyone, I think people have wanted to not wanted to get on the Sun bandwagon from game week 1, and he's kept banging, and everyone's wanted to get off at the next opportunity because he is the perfect price point to upgrade to someone like Bruno, someone like KDB. But when you actually take a back seat and have a look at it, this is a guy who is 9.5 million, 9.3 million in my team at the minute because I've had him for a while.
Yeah.
And he's scored 100 points so far. And the fixtures aren't bad that are coming up. They're not the best. There's no West Broms or Sheffield Uniteds. Actually, they're probably not great. They've got Liverpool and Leicester.
Well, they're getting better from definitely from game week 16. They look, really, they're playing the likes of Fulham, Leeds, Villa, Sheffield United at that point. But yeah, and there's also an argument that Son does better against, or can do well against, the better teams who leave a bit of space in behind. So say Liverpool play with a high line, can Kane through ball it to him in that game, possibly.
Leicester haven't looked particularly convincing at the back.
No, definitely not.
Fixture difficulty ratings, they show up pretty hard. So
forget the fixture difficulty rating. Yeah, in terms of Leicester, and that's again a little bit back to, I started looking in that game because when I looked at a couple of weeks ago, I looked at Leicester's defensive stats, and they weren't looking great at all. They've had, obviously, like I alluded to earlier, they've had a lot of injury problems in defence, so that's probably hindering them in terms of conceding goals. So Son could definitely do well in that fixture, and like you said, it's so hard to take him out. I did last week, and I did as a part of a move to get in the likes of KDB and Salah, so I definitely can't complain because Kane, Salah and De Bruyne are potentially going to kick on and do really well as well. But like you said, it's, in terms of the money saving, that could have been a mistake by myself, and I might need to rectify that and bring him back in potentially at some point. I've got no plans to do so, but it's definitely hard to remove him. It's just how we always want that shiny new thing, including myself. We want that. I couldn't resist getting De Bruyne for Fulham at home, and I couldn't resist getting Salah for a home fixture followed by Fulham away. So I just went for it and removed players who are good. I'd rather have been obviously taking out my lesser performing players, but I'd got my team to a place where they were actually, everyone was kind of performing quite well. So if I wanted to improve it, I was going to have to be taking risks and taking out good players. But yeah, I don't know. What obviously your plan last week, if you didn't get drunk, was to take out Son and Kane. What are you thinking now?
I'm thinking that's not happening, and I don't know what is happening, but I'm thinking I'm going to have to sacrifice one of them to try and upgrade a midfielder.
Who are you thinking?
I think for 1.6 million less, I want to keep Son. The issue is the price point, and he's a midfielder. So I'd realistically have to get rid of Grealish, Souček, or Jota. Now, I'll just click about here for 1 second and I'll bore everyone, but if I said wanted to get rid of Kane and Souček, I could bring in, Bamford's who I want to bring in, so I could bring in Bamford and have 11.5 in the bank, which is heartbreaking.
Sterling.
So it's probably going to have to be a -4, get rid of Timo Werner as well, bring in maybe Callum Wilson.
Danny Ings.
Wilson looks decent. Danny Ings at 8.3 could be a nice one. Jeez, Danny Ings is back and he's scoring. He's on penalties and everything. Let's say, for argument's sake, I bring in Wilson and Bamford for Werner and Kane. That leaves me 14.5 million. I can have whoever I want and have a bit in the bank in case something changes. So I'm really, really thinking of keeping Son is kind of where I'm at. But we'll see how that transpires. There's a week of Champions League football, isn't there? Yeah,
I see a weakness in your plan though. So say if you did do that, obviously just to go through your whole midfield and your whole strikers quickly, I'll whiz through your team. So it's Souček, Grealish, Son, Fernandes, Jota in midfield, and then you've got Calvert-Lewin, Werner, and Kane up front. If you took out Werner, Kane, and Souček, who are you going to bench each week? There's going to be Jota sitting there at nearly 7 million, or maybe you're going to have to bench Callum Wilson. So you're going to have a really good bench player, which could be a plus. There's no right or wrong way of playing FPL. Some people do that. But you're not the type of manager who likes bench points, so that's why, and neither am I. I kind of like to have a strong player, the likes of, again, I keep talking about it, but the likes of Sojcik or Lookman, because they don't break the bank, but they're still a decent option, rather than having 8 players where each week I'm thinking, fuck, who am I going to bench?
I think if there's a season for it, though, in other seasons I would have thrown up at the thought of having a decent bench player, but this season, but what happened with Aston Villa and Newcastle just kind of epitomises it. It's like having that little bit of wiggle room, it's not the end of the world. But I know what you're saying. I'm going to leave it the week. I'm probably going to sleep in past the deadline and then complain to you again next week. I haven't missed the deadline in like 4 years of FPL, by the way. It was heartbreaking. The last conundrum in my team, we'll move on from the Spurs lads. Keane is pretty much the exact same as Son in terms of the amount of points he's scoring. He's in form. He's a bit pricier, but I find it hard to get rid of him. But if I have to get rid of one, it's him based on price and the fact he's a forward, not a midfielder, the point for a goal, etc., etc. But he does have penalties, so I can see why some would want to pay the extra 1.5 or whatever it is. But we'll move on from the Spurs thing. We talk about them every week, but they've just been so good. Timo motherfucking Werner is breaking my heart, Wes. Like, he is breaking me slowly. I've had him all season. And do you know what? At the start of the season, I think in like the streams I did with you and a couple of other really good managers, I was saying, I don't want Timo Werner. I'd like to see people prove themselves in the league first.
Yeah.
I'd rather lose a few points in the first few weeks and then get them in. And I just fell into the groupthink trap and brought in Werner, and I haven't been able to escape him because every week he looks so good, and just when I wanted rid of him, he got 16 points in game week 5, and then he followed it up with a couple of 7-pointers and a 5-pointer, and he has been getting returns. But against Tottenham, as I said, I think he looked like or was it against Newcastle? I can't remember. He looked like he could have scored 4 and assisted 3. I said that to you on the pod. Against Leeds, he missed the most ridiculous thing ever. Like the most ridiculous chance ever, and he had another couple of chances kind of through. I don't know what the XG was on them. They weren't surefire, but they were decent chances.
Well, that game for Chelsea was the highest XG a team has recorded in certainly this season. I think it even dates back for a few years. I'm not sure of the exact stat, but the overall takeaway from what I'm saying is that the XG for Chelsea that game was extraordinarily high. Werner in particular had a really high XG that game. I'll pull up some stats on that actually as we're talking. But yeah, incredible. That chance
was ridiculous. I think if he had left it would have been a goal, wouldn't it?
Yeah. He was. I'm pretty sure it was like going posting in from Giroud's header. I think it was going in for sure.
Yeah, but he definitely had a few cracking chances. The XG was stupid. Not for the first time in the last couple of weeks. I am telling listeners, I put whatever you want on it. A double-digit haul's coming. Probably a brace with an assist or something crazy. I can smell 15 points in the horizon. I really can. And I'm going to end up getting rid of him this week. Maybe next week. If I can't see me keeping him for another week because he keeps breaking my heart. I'm starting to think the reason he scored so many at Leipzig, I'm a fan of European football, I've seen a lot of them there, was just the sheer amount of chances he got in that team. They're so attacking.
Yeah,
and German football's end-to-end stuff. There's a lot of high-scoring games.
He did
and
get
I'm
a lot of
starting
chances,
to just think he just had more chances, and that's why he's bagging them, because his finishing has been woeful.
Yeah,
it's been woeful.
It's so tough, isn't it? Because like you say, he's kind of ticked along in the last few weeks since that 16-point haul.
16-2, 7-7, 5-2, 5. Like, they're not bad, but it's just like...
For what, 9.5 million, is it enough? He's in the overall points, he's behind the likes of Wilson and Bamford, who are obviously a lot cheaper. He's behind Vardy, who's a similar ballpark, behind Calvert-Lewin and Kane, obviously. Ings is on the exact same amount of points as Ings, who's missed the last 3 games, and then he only came off the bench in this week. So Ings has scored 2 more goals than him, 2 less assists. But like you say, it's not necessarily about the previous results. Is he one of those players that always looks like he's going to get monster hauls, but then never actually does? Whereas the likes of someone like Son, in terms of the underlying stats for a lot of what we see from Son, it's not great, but he's just much more clinical. Especially remember near the start of the season, I think he'd scored 8 goals from just 14 shots, which is incredible finishing. So yeah, it's a hard one. If I had Werner, first 3 game weeks, I wildcarded him out. And I was kind of glad. He's one of those dilemma players. His price he's not cheap, but he's not expensive. He's mid price, I guess. I would have probably lost patience with him, but it is that worry where, like you say, you're watching him. We know about his track record in the Bundesliga. I think it was like 28 goals and 6 assists or something last season. Something like that. It was like, I'm pretty sure it's 34 attacking returns. So he's got it in the locker. And he could break your heart in a different way this week, John, if you do remove him by getting that hat trick. This could be the week he explodes. But that's the FPL balancing act. It's how long do you keep hold of these players, whilst you could easily go, you could downgrade and then you could afford, Kevin De Bruyne or Salah by going to someone like Wilson, to someone like Bamford, to someone like Shea Adams. I bet even Shea Adams isn't too far behind Werner. He's not. He's 3 points behind him this season. And Shea Adams is a player who sometimes gets taken off early, not maybe in recent weeks, but it's tough.
It's heartbreaking. It's killing me slowly. So
yeah,
I'm gonna hope someone gets injured in the Champions League or Europa League and makes my decision that bit easier. That's kind of what I'm sadly hoping for.
It's always nice. So it's kind of the reason why I took the plunge on. It was essentially a minus. My last 2 transfers in was for the -8 was the Kane out to Bamford and the Grealish to Salah, and it just felt that little bit nicer knowing that Grealish couldn't punish me this week. Only Kane out could, and luckily Bamford softened that blow, and Salah obviously smashed Grealish this week. So yeah, when it's kind of nice if your team's looking set and you get a little injury to. If Werner gets a knock now, then you'll be quite happy because you can take him out without any worry.
Yeah. Let's fingers crossed. So yeah, I think that's my team. We've done your team. Are there any other players or big talking points you want to touch on? Maybe Zaha, we've completely skimmed over after his big points haul. 18 points, 2 goals and an assist and 3 bonus.
Yeah, crazy. So that game, Palace are surprised me this year in total. They've had a decent amount of goals scored in this year. Like they scored 4 at home to Leeds. They scored 3 away to Man United in week 2. Let's not forget Zaha with 2 goals in that game. So 3 away at United, 4 at home to Leeds, 5 away at West Brom. I'm pretty sure last year the max they'd have scored in a game would have been 3, maybe once or twice. I don't know for sure. But yeah, they weren't a team who was scoring a lot of goals. So it was always like, you could put in Zaha, but if Palace scrape a 1-0 at home to West Brom and he maybe grabs the assist, it's not amazing. But yeah, they've been scoring goals. And like I said, this week, Zaha back from 2 games off with obviously the COVID issue. People who did have a strong bench would have had the luxury of keeping hold of him. And then, for West Brom, you can't really get a better fixture. So he got, like you say, 2 goals, the assist, looked amazing. Eze looked really good. I'm not saying he's necessarily a massive FPL asset at the minute. But he's had a game where he got a 13-pointer, I think. Benteke got... Benteke, I couldn't believe it when I saw him scoring goals. 2 goals in a game from Benteke.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I want to talk about a tweet, actually. So I put out a tweet this morning with my score, and I said that would be going through my team on the podcast. And someone replied with a point score of, I think it was 115 points, and they transferred in Benteke for a -4. Now... And he said all his mates were calling him an idiot. Before that game, he'd only played... the maximum amount of minutes he played in one game was 24 minutes. So he'd been coming off the bench for like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 13 minutes. And someone's just transferred him in for a -4. But I love those stories. Like, someone's just backed Benteke. And they've got 13 points away at West Brom. It's a move I'd have never done in a million years. And
that's why you have the records you have, Wes.
well, I wish I did.
That's a crazy move.
I know, but I wish sometimes crazy is obviously good.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe this guy was a Palace fan, or maybe he just wanted to target West Brom. But I don't even know how he knew he was going to start, because.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
It's his only start of the season. But I certainly won't be going anywhere near Benteke. But yeah, so back to the more. A point that more people care about, which is Zaha and what to do with him. It really does depend. If you are looking at a move that maybe you want to go to, say, Salah or De Bruyne from Son, just for example. So maybe you could do the likes of Son to Zaha free up a couple of million and then, upgrade someone else to the likes of those players, or maybe you've got the likes of Daniel Podence, or maybe you've a bit fed up, or you're a bit worried now about Diego Jota, or you want to upgrade for someone like Sojcek, Lookman. Then you could go to someone like Zaha with relative ease, and that could be a good move. However, his fixtures are pretty awful, aren't they? In terms of their next few games aren't looking very good at all. Just pull them up. So, yeah, Palace have got Spurs, who are, they've conceded the least goals in the league this year. West Ham away, West Ham are doing pretty well defensively. Liverpool, then Villa, bit hit and miss. Leicester, not, we've alluded to they're not doing great defensively, but it's still not like it's not a West Brom, is it? It's not a Fulham. It's not a Sheffield United. So yeah, their next 5 look pretty grim. It's just whether Zaha can keep performing in spite of those fixtures. Don't know what you think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for that price point, with the fixtures ahead, I think there's more consistent, easier bets. I think Grealish is obviously a better choice. If you had to pick one this week, I'd be picking Grealish. They're a very similar price.
Yeah, exactly.
If not the same price. And I just don't know why anyone would pick Zaha over Grealish other than to try and be cool. Do you know, like I just don't think it makes sense. And I get it. I get he scored 2 goals. And maybe this is why I'm shouted FPL, but looking at the fixtures, same prices, I just think Grealish is a no-brainer. But if Grealish is, say, locked, and it's a conversation between Jota and Zaha, I can understand that a bit more, even though I have Jota, because, he obviously was benched at Wolves. He'll probably play the Champions League. He mightn't get a lot of game time at Fulham. Then they've got Spurs. So over there, I start to see the conversation. Again, downgrading from Son to free up some capital. Yeah, okay, if you don't already have Grealish. But for me, Grealish or Zaha, I'd bet a lot of money that Grealish bags more points in the next 6 game weeks than Zaha does. Yeah,
you're right. It's a better comparison, Grealish to Zaha. My kind of, Son, it was a bad example I used actually earlier, so scrap that. But in terms of, I disagree with you in terms of, I do definitely think there's a conversation there in terms of Zaha this year. There's quotes about him, saying that he wants to, why aren't I taking more, he questioned himself, why aren't I taking more shots? Why aren't I being more creative? Why aren't I taking penalties? So, he's got penalties in his locker now. He scored 4 goals last year and he's got 7 already this season.
That's fair.
So he's got 7 goals. So he obviously missed those 2 games. So 7 goals in 9 games with 3 assists as well. So he's averaging 10. He's got 10 attacking returns in 9 games. Grealish has also played 9 games.
10
5
games.
goals.
9 games, you already missed game week 1.
He missed the week 1, and he just obviously missed the last week as well. He's got 5 goals, 6 assists, so they're really close. Like you say, the fixtures wise favour Grealish. But yeah, I definitely.
You can have your conversation, whereas I'm just going to call them idiots and say they're only doing it to be cool.
Yeah.
And then in 3 weeks, when Zaha has scored way more than Grealish, everyone can call me a dickhead.
Yeah. No, it's tough. I'm not saying I'm backing Zaha over Grealish. Definitely not saying that. But I'm just saying, if someone came to me and said I'm going to put in Zaha over Grealish, I'd say fair enough.
In fairness, I'm just being a bit ruthless. It probably is a fair conversation or debate to have in your head, but
I like how ruthless this is. But in terms of, I want to highlight some teams with good fixtures actually. And if you look at Leeds, they've obviously just had Chelsea away, but now they've got West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Man United away, which historically you'd say tough fixture, but right now maybe not. But then apart from that, after that they've got Burnley and West Brom. So I don't necessarily agree Man United is a hard fixture, but let's leave that conversation aside. 4 out of their next 5 are West Ham home, Newcastle home, Burnley home, and West Brom away. They're good fixtures for a team like Leeds who are getting lots of shots away. Their games are full of shots as well, so I think there could be goals at both ends. I have brought in Dallas. I don't necessarily trust Leeds' defence for clean sheets. However, I do hope for some attacking returns, and I do hope that they can get the odd clean sheet in those fixtures. But yeah, those fixtures are pretty irresistible out of the next 5 games. 4 really good ones in my opinion. And even Man United away, if Bamford could score at Chelsea, there's no reason why the likes of Bamford and Rafinha can't score there. And obviously their prices. You've got Dallas and Ayling, players like that at 4.5 million. You've got the keeper at 4.5. You've got Rafinha and Jack Harrison in midfield, and players and Click, who's on penalties, all around the sort of 5.5 million mark. And then you've got Bamford at front for what is he, 6.1, 6.2. So there's decent cheap options there in a team that takes a lot of shots in every game. And good fixtures coming up. So I think and hope that Leeds can do well over the next few.
Yeah, well, Bamford's 100% my downgrade from either Kane or Werner, probably the latter.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Bamford looks amazing.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. Like, it just shows FPL how things can change. Going into this season, not many people rated him.
No. He wasn't, absolutely, he wasn't on my radar at all at the start of the season, not going to lie. He was kind of a player who, even in the Championship, he didn't score, an extraordinary amount of goals. So
I think he had a good season, but what I was told by Championship watchers was that he had a Timo Werner-esque type thing in the Bundesliga. He had 14,000 chances, and apparently he missed half them.
Yeah, and he's still a little bit like that. He's scored obviously a lot of goals, but he's getting in the weeks leading up to Chelsea, he was blanking but still registering those big chances. So I saw him overtake the likes of the Kanes and Vardys in terms of sort of the non-penalty XG rating over the last few weeks. So I was kind of thinking that if he can keep, I guess his finishing is going to stay like that. If he can maybe come in even a bit more clinical, then he could get 20 goals this season for sure. How many is he on so far? He's on 8 goals already. He's got another how many games?
A lot. 25 or something.
28 games, is it?
27
games left in the season. Let's say he plays at least sort of 20, 22 of those, scores a goal every other game, then he gets 20 Premier League goals this season. It's quite achievable.
Well, look, Wes, I think it's time to move on from player talk to some questions, which will inevitably be player talk again, but are you happy enough to do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, first off, I mentioned in the intro, there's a little forfeit that we've come up with for whichever one of us finishes lower. Now, I'm pretty sure based on track records, you're the overwhelming favourite, and you're about 200k ahead of me now after that game week. But anyway, I'm not making excuses. I am kind of, but anyway. So the forfeit we've come up with, which I find absolutely hilarious. I used to know 2 guys who did a forfeit like this. They used to do different forfeits every year. One year, the winner got to take the other one's mother out for a steak dinner. That was one of their forfeits. They used to play 50 games of FIFA each year, 1 game of FIFA a week, and whoever won got the trophy and got the forfeit. But one of the things they did, which we're going to do because I find it absolutely hilarious, is whichever one of us finishes lower in FPL at the end of the season has to draw a portrait of the other person and hang it in our downstairs bathroom for a month.
Yeah.
I'd say our missuses, is that a thing, will be raging.
Yeah, they'll be. Mine will be raging for sure because she
Yours
likes
probably
to
doesn't
have,
even know yet.
No, she doesn't know, and
you're hoping she never knows.
Yeah, and she likes to have the house nice and very much into sort of interior design. So she'll be fuming to see your ugly mug up on my downstairs bathroom.
Yeah,
and
I'm really shit at drawing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like anyone, like some of my mates will be listening at the minute, and they know how bad I am at drawing. Like I'm not just sort of, at school I wasn't sort of middle of the range at sort of drawing or artwork. I was like right down near the bottom. So I'm horrendous at arty type stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be good. It's fair. I won't be able to draw anything that even resembles you. It'll just be an absolute mess. But it's gonna have to hang up in the house, and it's gonna be interesting convincing the missus.
Well, you see, looking at both of our kind of avatars on Twitter, if you don't have us on Twitter, I'm John Nellis _ and Wes is at FPL _ Heisenberg. Your avatar is like relatively simple, I think.
Yeah.
Mine has a little bit more going on, so I think you'll have a harder time whenever you lose. Oh, look at that fighting talk already. But
here we go.
We'll see how it goes. First question is from Exiled FI, one of the Football Index crew. Great lad. He says, do you know what he actually sent me? A bunch of cider. His name's Paul.
He sent you what?
He sent me a load of cider over. He's from the south of England, and basically I was drinking like Bulmers or Magners on stream, and he said you can't drink that pish, and he sent me a bunch of like proper cider.
I bet is he from Somerset?
Somerset or Devon or one of those places. I should know this. South of the country.
Southwest is famous for sort of cider. I've got a friend from Somerset who would also call Bulmers and all that lot. When I was at uni, I was drinking that, and he was yeah, proper cider, as they say down in the
Proper
West
cider.
Country. South
I
West
think
Country.
I'm talking kind of. I don't even know English accents. I think I'm talking like Northerners do or something. But anyway, great
pretty
lad. His question: if you've never had any of Kane, Son, or Dominic Calvert-Lewin until now, A, should you get at least one? It feels inevitable they'll stop scoring as soon as I transfer in, but I've thought of that for weeks. And B, can you realistically still do well not having had any or not having any?
Yeah, so with that one, I don't like this sort of. We all fall into the trap, including myself. But you got to kind of talk. You got to kind of tell yourself to shut up when you're saying things like, as soon as I transfer them in, they'll stop scoring, because it's just obviously superstitious nonsense. So you kind of got to get that thinking out your head. But in terms of, like we alluded to earlier, there's lots of good options out there. So you literally don't need any of those players, and you could still be doing well. They're 3 players I have had at different times. I've just obviously taken some out. I've still got Calvert-Lewin, but yeah, there's an argument to go without. So if you don't want them, or there's other options, or maybe you want Bamford, or even someone like Watkins, Callum Wilson over the likes of Calvert-Lewin, they're cheaper. They're better for bonus points, because if you look at Calvert-Lewin, he's scored 10, 11 goals, but he hasn't, bonus points wise, he hasn't got many bonus points at all. So he's the type of player that needs 2 returns. Even in the game at the weekend was just a 1-1, where you'd expect, obviously there's no clean sheets to get the bonus points. There's not other players, bagging braces and loads of assists. So I thought, Calvert-Lewin's going to be on for bonus here, and he wasn't. He didn't get any bonus in that game, which was a real bad sign in terms of that. So, kind of bringing it back to this question, you can go without them for sure. But I do back all 3 of those players to keep scoring points, and I say that off the back of removing 2 out of 3. I didn't remove them because I don't believe they'll score points. I do believe they'll score points, but I'm hoping the ones I've brought in will score more.
Yeah, I think you basically answered that question perfectly. You can definitely go without them, as long as you're not going without them for the likes of Benteke. Then you'll be sweet.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to another question. So I think I actually see that Benteke screenshot here underneath that, Ryan West.
Yeah. It's an
Benteke.
absolute crazy score. Crazy score. Fair play to him. But yeah,
crazy.
Do not transfer in Benteke, everyone. It's not. It is not a good choice. I don't care that he scored.
He's going to go and bag another brace next week. Anyway, Sergio wanted to know who we plan to captain on our transfer plans. So we'll maybe not go into the transfer plans too much. We've kind of discussed it, and we're getting towards the end of the pod. But who are we thinking of captaining next week? That's something we haven't discussed.
Yeah, good. It's a good question. I'm glad he brought up captaincy. So I'm looking at making Salah my captain. He's got Fulham away. Fulham have conceded a lot of goals. I don't think, we shouldn't look at Fulham as like a complete whipping boys. They obviously only lost 2-0 away at City, which isn't like a complete drubbing. They won, was it 2-1 away at Leicester? But yeah, Salah's he's just such a consistent pick. He can score in any game. It is Fulham. It's the better fixture, and the tipping point for me is, if Bruno Fernandes or KDB had an easier fixture, I'd be possibly looking at those boys. But I don't have them in my... sorry, what am I talking about? But those 2 play each other in the Manchester derby, so I don't want either of those 2. So it's kind of my team's... It's an easy one for me. It's Salah, and I don't have the Spurs boys anymore who have Palace, which they could be an option. But for me and my personal setup, it's Salah, and it's not even a debate, really. It's quite an easy one for me this week.
Yeah, if you've Salah, you have to captain him. If you've Salah and you don't captain him, what have you got him for? Is kind of how I'd look at that. So. For me, I don't have him at the minute. That might change. Probably won't. If I was going to upgrade one of my midfielders, I'd probably go to KDB. But Kane or Son, whichever one of them remains, will probably be captain.
Yeah,
we'll see. Salah's definitely the boy, though. Like watching City play and Kevin De Bruyne having 2 goal involvements in the first 25-30 minutes or something. I think it was. I was shitting myself. It was horrible. Particularly because I tried to bring him in, and I think that was before Spurs hold, so it wasn't nice. But
yeah, I bet you was quite happy that it actually, by the end of the game, you was probably quite relieved it was only 14 points, because he hit the bar, didn't he? He had another.
I was over the moon.
Yeah, he had another chance which he was through on goal. He probably should have done better, but the keeper did well. And saved it. So it's very scary going without him. But yeah, so for your captain, you're going possibly Son or Kane,
possibly Spurs,
or
unless
Salah.
I bring in Salah.
Yeah,
I don't think I have the balls to captain Jota just out of rotation. If he doesn't get that, if he gets a 63-minute job in the Champions League, I might even go completely left field. I don't know. We'll see.
It's hard to predict though, isn't it? Because he got like a 6. He was the only one who did get semi-rested in the Champions League last game. He played about 60 minutes, but I think with Liverpool, Firmino, Mane and Salah have all had a kind of rest now. Maybe Klopp looked at the Wolves game as a tougher game. Maybe in Fulham, because it's Fulham, maybe he'll play all 4 because he'll know Fulham are going to maybe defend a bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Jota back in place of one of the centre midfielders, and they'll play sort of a 4-2-3-1 with Salah, Mane, Firmino and Jota all up as that front 4. But it is hard to predict, and I wouldn't. If I had Jota, I'd probably be too much of a chicken to captain him myself.
Yeah, I think I am, to be honest with you. But I'm acting like the big lad here in the podcast. Wes, let me have it.
Yeah,
Paul.
I did a couple of weeks ago when I was banging on about Calvert-Lewin, and then just changed my mind.
I did it and he blanked. Yeah, nice one. We'll move on. Paul at Sky Player and FPL. We've kind of covered that, but just
Paul,
to give him
legend.
a shout out. Mentioned Son and Kane out to get Salah captaincy versus Fulham or maintain the balance to go without. That's been a big of theme throughout the pod, so we'll not get into that again based on time. FPL Aloran says, no, sorry, he was replying to Rich, giving him a bit of a pep talk. Rich says, any advice for those of us that have had a horrendous start to the season? Asking for me. Cheers, boys. So one thing I'll just put in on that way is before we go anywhere, I think you'd be amazed how quickly you can climb ranks if you have a good score, and more of those kind of Debbie from the office teams will be falling off every single week. But I mean, I had a 58 pointer this week. I had a 58 pointer, right?
Yeah.
And I dropped from 425k to 622k.
Yeah,
that's a decent game week, and I dropped 200,000 points, 200,000 places. It's like, I think if you knock it out of the park in a week or two, you could be right back in the mix.
Yeah, so exactly. So I think I said I was at 415k in the ranks, but me and you were only separated by about 13 points. So it's very tight. And yeah, back to Rich's question about sort of, if you've ever had a horrendous start, I mean, you just got to keep making those right decisions, keep improving your team. Maybe it'll be gradually. Sometimes it'll be aggressive moves if it's the right thing to do. Don't go making too many stupid decisions like taking out good players for complete punts. It's still early doors. Keep plugging away. Keep doing the right things, and you should improve your ranks like that. So yeah, I'd say it's still early doors. It's only 11 game weeks in. It's deflating when you are doing badly and you kind of think you get in that mindset of it's never going to improve. I was kind of like that after maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, but then since then I went from about 1.4 million in rank to about 400k, which I'm not happy with the current rank, but I'm definitely a lot happier than I was. So I think that's the advice. Just keep making those right decisions, keep evaluating your team. If you've got players in there, I know I think Rich has still got Foden. Rich and Paul are guys I know pretty well, very, very well indeed. Really, really great guys. And yeah, I think Rich has still got Foden. So if that's a player you've got, you want to be moving him on because he's not getting game time. Forget looking at good fixtures he may play. Blah blah blah. He's got to go. He's not an FPL asset at the minute. You can't trust him. But yes, it's things like that. Just get your team good. Keep going. Keep plugging away. Debbie from the office will drop down. Other people will drop down. I do it pretty much every season. I start off fairly poorly and then climb the ranks. So you just got to keep doing the right things. And yeah, like you say, we covered Paul's question, didn't we? So we don't need to go into that. But yeah, cheers guys for the questions. Legends.
Rich FPL's got his little logo. It's all Christmassy up. He's done like a rebrand for Christmas. I like that, Rich. Maybe we need to follow suit with, stick a wee Santa hat on Heisenberg. I don't know. One last question, I'd say. There have been a couple of great ones. Now, FF Bang Burger. Right, these ones we can do really quick, fire ways and wrap this up. FF Bang Burger. With so many people going for Salavis for Fulham, what would be your differential captain pick? Now, we kind of just discussed this, but if you could only pick one player, you don't even have to own them. If you had to captain anyone other than Salah.
Anyone other than Salah.
Mane.
You go first, John. I'll think about it because we need to be quick.
Okay. I was kind of jokingly saying Mane, but he hasn't been in great form, but he has got Fulham. I would probably go...
sorry, I missed that.
Ooh, God. I said let's do this quick.
Werner.
I can only pick one. Fuck off.
It's a shout. Everton are conceding goals. They haven't picked,
it is a shout.
A clean sheet in many weeks. He could be ready to bang.
Alright, you go Werner. I'm going to go Danny Ings against Sheffield.
Great shout.
I reckon he gets the full 90 minutes.
Great
Sheffield
shout.
look horrible.
Yeah, that's a really nice shout. potentially want to change my mind. But yes, sod it. I'll stick with Werner. Werner and Ings, both good shouts if you haven't got Salah
Good
or the
differentials
Spurs
as well.
lads. Yeah.
So the last question then from FPL SWAT, again, quick fire, no dicking around, don't really need mass explanations, we've been through them all their pros, all their cons.
Yeah.
In order of priority until Christmas, 1 to 5, Salah, Bruno, Kane, Son, KDB.
Bruno, because it's a bit cheaper, then Salah second, KDB third, Son fourth, Kane fifth. I mean, they're such great assets. It's very hard to pick between them. That's just my opinion.
I can't argue with the logic. I
Could
can't.
be wrong.
Do you know, Bruno, form and price. Salah's about 2 million dear, 1.5 million dear, but
Yeah.
this Fulham fixture, everything else, yeah, I get it. KDB, I have a soft spot for him because he's just such an elite player, and you kind of have to put him above the Spurs boys just because it's KDB and he's in that Man City team.
Yeah.
And it's hard because the points the other two are scoring, and I'm going to find it hard to ship them both, if any, but yeah, probably Son before Kane, so I'd completely agree with your order, to be honest.
It's so hard though. It's like it's 5 amazing assets. It's like saying so to pick them, to prioritise them as FPL assets it's almost impossible, because if I said to you, John, forget FPL as in terms of footballers, who are the 5 best footballers out of those 5? We could debate it all day long about who's got the better qualities, blah blah blah. Salah's maybe the better goal scorer, Bruno's maybe better.
I think KDB is the best player. If I had to pick one,
again,
KDB is the best player.
I'd probably agree, but also you could. My point, what I'm trying to make is that we could counter argument each other all day long on those players, and it's the same for who's the best FPL asset. It's so hard to pick between them. So I mean, I think what maybe is important, which is something that Paul, actually, I'm in a WhatsApp group with Paul, Sky Player in FPL. He kind of made the point where you should possibly now is back your horses and stick with them, which is what I've done now. Is I've got rid of Kane and Son. I still think they're great assets. I still think they'll score points, but the horses I'm backing essentially are Salah, Bruno, and KDB. And you could even squeeze 4 of them in. I had the option of keeping Kane this week and having Salah, Bruno, Kane, and KDB. I'd have had to lose Vardy instead. Financially, I could have just about done it, but I chose to keep Vardy, and it meant I could keep a little bit of money in the bank. But yeah, really hard, and you can actually get a good team with 4 out of those 5 players. So I think back your horse now and stick with them for a few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Well, as we wrap it up, tell me this. I've just noticed because you've come out from behind the mic.
Yeah.
Are you growing your beard a bit longer?
Kind of. Work from
home. Have I had that
home.
Influence on you? You were talking to a handsome devil with a bigger beard for every week, and now you've decided you need to follow suit.
You've had a little haircut, actually, so maybe
I had a wee haircut, yeah.
Maybe on Twitter we need to put up a couple of screenshots of ourselves so people can see. Yeah, I like to look as hideous as possible, so I'll be growing this beard and hair as long as possible until my missus moans too much and I have to shave it off.
Fair play to you. Fair play to you. I think with like COVID and all that and lockdown, you have to go one way or the other. You either just keep growing it or you shave it all, because there's no other time in life you're going to get away with doing either, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, look, everyone, thank you for listening. And before you leave, make sure you subscribe, please do, and also leave a review if you're on Apple. If you're not on Apple, steal your wife's phone, steal your dog's phone, steal your auntie's phone. I don't care whose phone it is, but leave us a review. And go and download Fanslide and check it out. As I said, 6 games in the Premier League this weekend. Perfect opportunity for you, no matter where you are this weekend, to give it a go. You could love it, you could hate it. I would wager that you'll love it if you're an FPL player.
Yeah.
So go and give it a go.